So, I spoke to you before about time not existing, but what about, do you see world as a matrix?
So it would be very similar to just walking into a room and there's 7 computers there, and then each computer is its own universe, and then within that computer then you have the wallpaper, and then you have the internet icon, and you click on the internet icon and open up as many pages as the computer can handle, and those are your dimensions. And then you obviously can just shut down that computer or leave it running or have it in sleep mode and go sit at the next computer that is parallel to the one you were just playing on, and open up a whole new universe. To me, that seems to be how it sort of works, because you certainly feel that there is something else directing your motions, directing the events in your life. I don't believe in coincidence and things like that, and it just happens so often, too often, that I really feel like there's someone at a keyboard directing everything that is now paying attention to this character, which would be me, and saying, this is the game I want to play, this is where we're going to go. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't think that you're in control of your own life?
Not really, no.
Not really?
Not really. Like, to some degree, I can say what I want to do and what I, the aspects, and can we go do this time, and then the rest is sort of taken control of somehow, and yes, I'm taken to those, or sequence of events are made to be so that I can have that experience soon after my asking. But the fact that I'm having to ask first would suggest that I'm not in control. So when we're playing on a computer and it's a virtual reality game and we've got a character, we're really invested in that character. And I'm sort of thinking, is that character thinking it's real as well? Am I just one of those characters and someone... I really don't know. Does anyone really know?
Some people have certain sort of numbers of dimensions. So you have...
I've heard this, and so that's the 3rd dimension, there's the 5th dimension, and there's up to 12 or 13 dimensions. I mean, maybe on their computer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they're possibly quite limitless. I mean, if we take a look at a person's DNA and how alive they are, right? How much of them is working as a biological computer. When you're a whole working part within the machine, I mean, how much more capacity do you have, and therefore how much more capacity does the machine have in response to you? So I would say that it could be potentially limitless, especially when you take a look at multidimensional beings that then have even more potential for travelling to, or opening up web pages,
So, do you ever... I mean, how do you go through accessing, like, another dimension? Can it be instant? Can it be in the right time?
Yeah, it can be instantaneous, Now that I'm a little more adept to it, I know when I need to exit, and you can just hit the X in that top corner, it's that simple.
Simple to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's once you do it, and, But I think that in those movies, such as The Matrix, they suggest that there is a reality behind the illusion.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. But the one thing that I was confused on was I would be living a different existence once I closed my eyes, but with the same people at the same timeline. So in the evenings I will often be in a location that there's barely any rainfall, still this world, would seem to be miles in the future but seems to be still now. I'm the same age, have the dog, have the mother, everything's the same, and you're basically always just on the run, because there's not many humans left, and they're always trying to eradicate us with all the new gizmos that they come up with in order to do it. And so I thought, okay, is this the illusion, and that's what's really going on behind it? which is really hard to come to terms with, and I wasn't sure it made sense. And so the only other thing that I could think of was that actually it would be a parallel universe that I was taking part in.
And if we were to have what do you call it, a parallel sort of
In a parallel universe, the other person will not know. They will know they've been somewhere and done something, but they won't remember it. They will just have an uneasy feeling that something was going on that they didn't know about.
Okay.
So the time that my mother was concerned that something was going on that she didn't know about, and she said, were we doing something last night? Was something going on? What had actually happened was we were in a parallel universe, a different one again to the other one I explained to you. And in this one there were spirits that got around and basically took over bodies quite freely in this universe. It was quite a common occurrence. And what they did is initially they would close your ability to speak, and that closed off your body so that your body was more receptive just to them rather than it focusing on all the other stimulants. And then they would go in, and while the person couldn't speak and they were frozen, then they would of course house themselves completely. So I had to grab her, and I was saying, scream the Lord's name, scream the Lord's name. And she was just looking at me kind of confused and thinking, well, I don't feel like talking, because that's what they would make you feel like, that you just relax, you just don't feel like talking. And so I just grabbed her and I was just bashing her against the wall, so that the body, because it's not physical, it's just energy, would keep shaking so that the spirit couldn't align itself in there properly. So I just kept bashing her against this wall, and all these other people were sort of staring, going, oh my God, what's going on? And I bashed her. I said, you scream his name, you scream his name, you scream his name. And then she suddenly realised that actually shit, she can't talk. And that's when she panicked, and then she managed to break out of it. So when she rang me the next morning and said, what was going on last night? That's what was going on. So they are conscious of something, they just don't know what it was.
Okay.
Because they're not used to travelling, they're not thinking about travelling, it's not on their mind. So once you're thinking about it, you're attuned to it, then you have more chance of doing it. And then of course once you're doing it, you know exactly what's going on most of the time.
So if you were to physically get her in the other world, would it leave imprints in this one?
I have found that it did. I would often come back with bruising. So if I was shot or something like that, I'd come back with massive bruising and whatnot on my body.
Because that's what I realised. I'm like, I don't remember this bruise here. I'm like trying to think back. And this is a huge bruise. It makes you question, what did I do last night?
Yeah. So it can happen in two ways. One, you're being abducted and taken elsewhere, and the other is by that. However, once it occurred to me that actually these things aren't real, well then obviously I could walk into bullets and they wouldn't affect me at all, they'd just turn to powder, so it was fine. I guess the trick would be, because I've been living in this universe so long, or at least I've been focused on it so much, as if I could walk into them here. It's a different story. But there I was completely aware that it wasn't real, there's nothing they could do to me.
So you explained one part of it. It's either you being abducted or...
Yeah, or if you're playing around in a parallel universe.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
But what makes the Matrix not real?
It actually might depend on the person too, because when I went to that conference a few months ago...
Michael Tonger?
Yeah.
Okay.
I met someone in the car park afterward who came up to me and asked me if I had ever seen all the numbers. He said that once he started having what he thought was the awakening process, he struggled for a while, because everywhere he went he saw a breakdown of numbers or something. Now I'm not sure if that's because he had been watching movies and he hoped that that's what it would look like, I don't know, but that is what he said, and he seemed to be almost frightened by the whole thing. So it could have been, so if he was being truthful, and I mean someone wrote that, that woman wrote those books.
When they say numbers though, like what numbers was he saying? Was he just saying everything, or was he like only saying certain numbers?
He didn't specify, and I didn't ask, to be honest.
Because when you think about it, if we live in a matrix and you're talking about computers and stuff, it would be actually quite funny.
You'd be expecting to
and
see zeros and
entertaining.
ones,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
They're entertained to see a binary code. But then again, we may live in existence which has a more complicated code than just binary.
Mm.
But I mean, that was what he said and seemed to believe was his experience.
You know, like how you were talking about just watching the Earth sort of breathe.
Yes.
So it's like everything's sort of perfection. Everything's sort of running on its own. Like,
Yes.
In a
It's its own machine
it's
somehow.
its own machine, and I don't know. It's just works perfectly with the thing next to it. The thing next to it, so it's
Yeah.
making the thing go around. So that's why I never understood how come it's not sort of real. In what sense is it not real?
Well, I mean, if you play on the screen, everything next to it works perfectly.
Mm.
But in theory, it's not tangible, yeah?
Mm.
The screen is, but what's going on behind it, what you're seeing pop up and in and out, isn't.
So it's pixels. So just because it's not sort of physical, does that mean it's not sort of real? Or
Well, it depends how you're wanting to define real. When people talk to me about real, they're usually talking to me about physical. They can
Physical.
touch it. This must be real. I can touch it.
Yeah, yeah. And like the size of the planet, the size of us. Imagine if we're just very, very small. And
Well,
there
I
is-
even actually said to my mother the other day, because I was walking around
Yeah.
and she was complaining about no water, and I just said, oh, don't worry, they're just forgotten. And she's sort of like, what? And I thought, oh yeah, what? And I was thinking that I've been really busy, and I haven't. Things happened in my life, and I couldn't be home all the time, and I didn't get to water the gardens as often.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm home more, and I'm making sure that I can tend my garden and I water it frequently and whatnot. And perhaps it's not that different. Perhaps this is a garden, you know, and the gods or the god or whatever you want to call it has just been a little busy
Yeah.
and hasn't been able to water it. I mean, when I water my garden, there's a whole ecosystem there within an ecosystem within an ecosystem, and perhaps they are then taking that water and watering their own, what they believe to be their gardens, and perhaps this yard is the whole universe. And I mean, this whole planet could actually be a leaf on a tree.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about the lady in the red dress
Oh
from
yeah,
the Matrix?
see, it's lucky you write things down and you're so professional, because I forgot about that. I genuinely did. So what I wanted to say is that I recall, and I've only watched that movie once, it was a long time ago, but I'm certain that there was the blonde in the red dress walking along.
Yeah.
And the person was like, you know,
Yeah.
and then they had to stop everything because at that moment. And I wanted to point out that that is actually part of the teachings. And I have been confronted by that woman in the red dress twice and failed.
Mm.
Okay. It's only a simulation, but they do take you through it until you can pass. It's not a case of, well, in my experience, it's not a case of, oh, you failed, okay, move on to the next learning item. It's you need to pass that. And initially, the first time I was just like, wow, she's hot, you know, and I failed. And the second time, it was, wow, she's really attractive. Okay, how am I being perceived right now whilst I'm noticing this? I don't want people to think that I have an issue with her being attractive. I mean, she has really nice breasts, right? And so then I had to make a comment on it, like, wow, she's got really nice breasts, to cover for the potential that they might think that I had an issue with it and that I was insecure about it. Who cares? But obviously, that's obviously something that I deal with that I don't even know that exists there, and it's really important that I get rid of it if I'm going to continue to play in these realms. So, but it is actually a real simulation. So the woman
So how did you pass it though?
I haven't yet. No, they haven't run me through the next one.
And who's running it? Like,
It's a good question, but let's not digress.
how do you live with knowing that reality so it doesn't exist? What has changed? Like, what have you improved? Like from before, when you didn't actually know any difference between the two worlds.
So probably I just take things a lot less seriously. So if someone's on the platform and drunk and tells me I should just go and work at a brothel, for example.
Yeah, okay.
I just make a big joke of it, because I look at that entity, creature, aspect of creation, aspect of consciousness, viewing point of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, biological computer, part of a virtual, whatever it is, whatever it could be. I look at it and go, wow, you actually completely, one, identify with yourself as if you are real and exist and are an ego and a form and an own being separate from everything else, number one. And two, you're really involved in that shit. You're taking it really seriously, man. You want to lighten up, you know? And it's kind of funny. It really is kind of funny. So like I would have a lot of fun with that, actually. It just doesn't upset me, whereas I used to take things really personally. I was always serious, very angry, was getting in fights, physical fights, like I would throw people around, you know. I took things seriously, you know, and it just made life really rather difficult. It actually did, because it was a constant anxiety roll. So, and you're constantly in states of anguish and disillusionment and discouragement and confusion, and because I'm taking it so seriously and I'm so involved in it, like I've got a magnifying glass in it, so that all I can see is what's in the magnifying glass. I can't see out here anything, you know. So I've kind of removed the whole magnifying glass, and I'm more of a spectator now. And so it's much easier. It's always easier. That's why people have televisions, I think, because it's easier. They can just watch everything happen in front of them and they don't have to do anything about it. So I sort of tend to just watch everything, and I know when I've got to take part, and I know when it's important, and obviously there's other beings and so forth that are around that we take turns of getting what done's got to be. Do you know what I mean? All that sort of thing. But I'm under more direction, and I don't try and take control. Anytime I try and take control, it goes wrong. And I remember now, don't try and take control. You're not in control. It's not your place. So just be utilised where required, when required, and everything else is given to you, so long as you stick to that role. So that's how I sort of improved it and made it easier. Yeah, but that's basically just I've let go, let loose the reins.
And so your life has...
So much easier.
So much easier.
Yeah, I mean, I have more of everything.
And you're constantly thinking about less what's hurting you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't focus on those things, and I hurt less anyway. The only the times I struggle is, like I said earlier, when I have to go out amongst humans and whatnot, and I really struggle because I really feel everything that they feel, and it's really exhausting and painful, because so many are feeling so much pain. Like they are feeling excruciating, genuine pain in what they're going through, and they're so involved in it. And of course I feel that, and I have to try not to feel that, because obviously it's not mine, it's not real, whatever, but you do really feel for them.